everybody. Welcome into Author's Insight with Jake Lynch, the video podcast where we discuss the inside the mind of Jake's book. We are halfway done highlighting each part of Jake's book, Broken to Beautiful. This is episode 5 of 10. It's a story about a teenage girl going through tragedy and suicidal thoughts, how she finds God, and how her relationship with God transforms her and the people around her, going from broken to beautiful. You can buy this book on Amazon in Kindle or paperback version, and the audiobook comes out this May. Welcome to the show. Jake Lynch, everybody, the author that you see before you. I am just his humble brother who has not written any books in my life. But today, Jake, we're talking about part 5, the suck up. And if I can, I believe I'm quoting this right, but Alec Baldwin from The Cat in the Hat. Nobody likes a suck up.
Yes, that is 100% perfect.
Yeah, I knew you were thinking that. We're brothers.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, we are brothers.
Just in case anybody forgot. But yeah, the suck up that we are talking a little bit about. I don't know if it's a new character. I forget if she's mentioned before this part, but chapter 35, it's called the suck up.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really interested about your quote. It says, "No matter what you do, you can't force people to like you." I love this quote because so many people who maybe are desperate for friendship or looking for friendship, they want to do everything they can to get people to like you, but it's a delicate balance to try to go forward on. So just kind of going forward in this part, why is Joanna kind of an important character in this book?
Yeah, so I introduced Joanna into the story at this point, and Joanna's a new character, and she represents like a new problem, or a problem that high schoolers all deal with, which is fitting in and trying to make friends and, sucking up to people to try and be friends with them so that you aren't filled with anxiety all the time and can be included, and like she just so outwardly expresses that it's kind of laughable a little bit. You're just like, oh my gosh, she really is the suck up. Just in the first few pages when you meet her, you're like, oh gosh, this girl needs to get a backbone. It's kind of comical a little bit, but yeah. So I introduced her just to bring this new problem in and see how Crystal's going to interact with this type of character and what she sees with that. And I like that quote a lot just because it's so true. Like you can buy people flowers, you can buy them chocolates, you can drive them all around and like do all these nice things, but you can't force people to like you,
Yeah, you can do all these things and people still won't like you.
Yeah.
Or you can, maybe it will help. But it's interesting because I feel like everybody at one point in their life has been through something like this where they want to be liked so badly and they do things that are maybe a little bit out of their, not even comfort zone, but like something that they wouldn't normally do. And you can tell it's like, oh, you are doing this just because you want people to like you in a sense. You're not doing it because it's you.
Yeah.
And I think this is a challenging thing to write about. So I give you a lot of kudos because, like, obviously you want to do nice things for people. That is a good way of going about, sharing God's love. But then at the same time where it's like where you're trying to do these nice things so people do become your friends back, that's a little bit different.
Yeah.
And I think you did a good job kind of using Joanna as a scapegoat, or maybe not a scapegoat, as the example of trying to do this.
Yeah. And like, you see it in how she interacts with some of the characters. So Joanna hangs out with Summer's group and she tries to fit in, and she does stuff a little out of her character. Like Summer will start back talking about people, and Joanna will jump in on that to try and be a part of the group. It's like, yeah, I hate that person, they're so lame, and everything. So it wasn't too hard writing this character, just because like it was, I don't know, it was easy to write. I'm like, oh yeah, it's a girl, she sucks up to people and it doesn't go well for her. And I'm like, that's it.
Yeah, it's just like, hey, sucking up doesn't always get you to where you want to go in life, and I think it's interesting because I remember me trying to do something like that, especially in middle school. I wasn't technically like popular or whatever, and there was like a group at school that thought they were the cool kids. And
Hmm.
I remember when I was going through some things, I was trying to hang out with them, and I remember just being like, I don't do these things. I don't say these things, and then you end up like, that's where peer pressure can come in or something like that. And it's not that
Yeah.
I went through that, but I just remembered I'm like, why am I doing this? Like, I, these people clearly aren't giving me the attention. I should just try to be myself. And then when I really did, that's when I found really good group of friends. And that doesn't
Hmm.
always happen. Everybody goes through something different, but some of those friends that I did make, they were some of the groomsmen in my wedding.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so yeah, like there was Eric, there's Griffin, um,
Great guys.
great guys. Yeah. So was there a point in your life where where maybe you were Joanna trying to sucking up just to fit in?
I mean, there was a point in high school when I did want to be a part of this one friend group early on. And like I didn't try to suck up. I was kind of more just like smiling and just going along with the group. And like, I want to be a part of this group. They're really fun. They're cool people. And I don't know. It's just like I tried to be friends with them, but they never reciprocated back. And, it took me a while to realize that. And so eventually I came to the point where I'm like, no, I'm not gonna try and please you guys anymore because if you're not being nice to me back, then it's not gonna work out anyway.
It's not worth it.
So yeah, exactly. So that was a process that I had to learn a little bit. And just like in life in general, it's like whenever I've tried to please someone or like like thought like, oh, like I'm gonna do really good, like do a good job in front of this person, they're gonna like me a lot more and they're gonna like see how great this is. And then it never works. It's like God always home and be like, nope, it doesn't work like that, buddy. And I'm like, dang it, you're right.
You try to please people, the only person that you will end up not pleasing is yourself.
Yeah,
That's a quote from Troy.
that's a
Wasn't in
good
the book.
quote.
I like that quote.
I do like that quote.
Just came up with it. But let's kind of keep talking about this. I think this is something that's super relatable, especially in this day and age. Joanna comparing herself on social media to others. Why
Yeah.
was this something that you wanted to bring up in the book?
It wasn't a huge like part, but I knew I wanted to add that in because Joanna is the type of character to compare herself like that to everyone. Like Crystal is not like that. Crystal's not on social media, so she doesn't compare herself like that. But she still compares herself. And so I wanted to make a little more of a point with that, of saying like, all right, you got like guys, like we got to stop looking at social media so much and stop comparing ourselves to others because people make these posts on social media, but like are they like they look happy, but are they actually happy in that post? So the smiles are there, but you don't really know what's going on in the moment. So it's just kind of like trying to make more of a point to teenagers, like stop like looking at social media so much, thinking everyone has it all together because they don't.
I know that's a huge trap. I think that's the biggest trap that people fall in. And some of the most productive and mind clearing parts of my life is when I kind of go off of social media for a little bit. And it's
Yeah.
not like I can, I'm a news reporter, so I have to be on social media for my work and all that good stuff. But like at the same time, you're like, it's so easy. Just compare yourself. Oh my gosh, I want to do things like that person. That person did
Yeah.
this. Why can't I do that? It's constantly they're not necessarily doing anything wrong, like whether they want attention or not. But like I think the poisonous part kind of comes with everything becomes about you in a different way. You look at that and you're like, oh, that person just went on this cool vacation. And this is stuff that a lot of people have heard and we've dissected ever since social media really became a thing, like when we were very young. So we
Yeah.
almost kind of grew up with it. And it's almost, it's tough because it's just like a mainstream part of our life now.
Yeah.
And it's almost impossible to completely get rid of because so many different workplaces use it for business purposes. I mean, when you're trying to market yourself, normally you go to social media. It is
Yeah.
really tough to get away from. So I love how you put that in because Joanna is a very conflicted person internally. But this next chapter, Turning the Other Cheek, chapter 36, is almost a hard chapter to read.
I
There's that
guess.
evil laugh right
I
there.
guess.
But if you remember reading this, and I'm talking to the viewers, not necessarily you, because obviously you wrote it, but this is where Amber attacks Crystal, and
Yeah.
Amber's like, what, Summer's right hand woman,
Yeah.
um, and Crystal just keeps getting smacked around. It's like that Key and Peele episode, front hand, backhand, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and but Crystal just takes it and doesn't fight back. This was almost like disturbing because like you wrote it very vividly. So there was a very clear image in my head. Um, yeah, what was the point of this? Why?
Why?
Answer.
Yeah, so
You
uh
almost sound guilty. Yeah.
well it's when I write those scenes where I create it very vividly and I'm like, this is kind of brutal to read. And I'm like, I know, and I'm guilty for writing that, but I'm also not sorry for some reason. So when I wrote that scene, I think I always knew that there would be a fight scene like that in the story. And so this scene is basically Amber exacting revenge for Summer for when Crystal yelled at her.
Peace
You know,
out.
like when
Piss off.
exactly like that was like the consequences of that scene coming back. But also, this whole scene was meant to be a test for Crystal to see if she was really changing in character. Because as a Christian, you know, we like learn turn the other cheek. Well,
Mhm.
it's easy to say that. It's a lot harder to do that. And that's partially why I wrote the scene so vividly, is like I want it to be like hard, like brutal a little bit to where you want Crystal to hit back,
Right.
but she doesn't. And that is a test that proves that Crystal really is changing. And the whole thing shows that Crystal has more strength than Amber does. And it's also showing Joanna seeing this whole thing and be like, what the heck is going on?
Mhm.
Um, but that whole thing was meant to be a test for Crystal to show that she really is different, that she really is changing in a better way. And that's hard to not fight
Yeah.
back with someone just slapping you over and over again. And here's another insider uh, part that I didn't write in the story, was that originally I wrote that scene to where Amber had rings on and she
Ugh.
slapped Crystal and like
Oh,
left a scar on her. And I'm like,
that's
oh,
assault, brother.
I know. Is
I mean, I guess it's assault anyway, but yeah, that's bad.
yeah, but and I thought about that and I'm like, wait, but if I had Amber like attack her and Crystal had a scar, then that scar would be permanent on her face. And then it would be for the rest of the story. And I'm like, oh, I gotta take that out. That's
Yeah.
that's not gonna work. So that's one thing that I took out of that portion. But yeah, it's kind of a brutal scene, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it happens. High schoolers can be brutal though. Like that's the honest truth. I would hope they wouldn't like wear rings and cut their face and all that stuff. But yeah, it's interesting because like exactly what you said. You wrote it as to where like you want Crystal to fight back, and a lot
Yeah.
of people, when you're growing up and your parents kind of talk to you like, hey, if like somebody hits you, like it's okay to fight back. But
Yeah.
I don't remember how mom and dad kind of like brought us up, but it's like, hey, you need to defend yourself. But Crystal just takes it. And it makes, I think, a bigger impact in the long run rather
Yeah.
than just like, oh, Crystal retaliated against Amber and won the fight, even though she was technically in the right. She was defending herself.
Yeah.
But that's interesting. And like, I see that there are a few different Christian themes that you really wanted to hit hard
Yeah.
or like just kind of touch upon. And I think this is one of them. And, I'm just curious why this was something that you think maybe the person who doesn't understand Christianity yet should try to understand.
That's a hard thing to explain, dude.
That's why we're here.
That's why we're here. Yeah, just because of how countercultural it is. It's like it's such an easy natural reaction. Like someone hits you, you hit them back
Mm-hmm.
harder and more. But like that's the whole part about Christianity that makes it so unique, is that it's countercultural. it takes things that you normally would do and flips it on its head. It's like someone hits you back, you turn the other cheek, you know? And so like, and by Crystal doing that, it does make more of an impact. You know, it's so weird that it's like, no, she should hit her back. But it creates more of an impact on Amber of like, why isn't this girl hitting back? It's so weird that it makes more of a scene. And then also like Amber does give Crystal the opportunity to strike her. She like lifts up, is like punch me in the stomach right now. I'll give you a free shot. And Crystal
Right.
wants to, you know, like she wants to, but she doesn't. And then she gets kind of a moment and then she says something to Amber and Amber just like goes pale and just runs off. And you're like, what the heck did she just say to her?
Right.
You know, so I wanted to add a little mystery to that scene too. Like the whole scene is weird when you
Yeah.
think about it. It's like
Yeah.
person comes up, starts beating a person in broad daylight, and the person getting beaten doesn't throw a single punch, and they win the fight. You're like,
Yeah.
that's so weird.
Like,
But
what?
how else do you do that if you don't have Christ in your life?
Right.
So it shows a strength of character on Crystal's part that she didn't have before.
It'd almost be a weird thing if she didn't have Christ and she did that. She's like, give me the
Yeah.
pain. But very great scene. If you haven't read that already, definitely give chapter 36 a read. But I want to move on to chapter 37 called The Outcast.
Yeah.
This could be anybody, you know. But I love the quote that you have. It's from Crystal. It says, if you live your life trying to please others, then you will always be a slave to their expectations. Did you hear that from somewhere? Where'd you come up with that?
No, like all of the quotes I came up with on my
Oh,
on my own essentially. And this
that's
quote
deep,
is
man.
yeah, and this quote is very synonymous to the like quote at the beginning of the part. But they all kind of fall within the same line. But I wanted to touch on slightly different areas within the same subject. And so like, you know, Crystal's trying to help Joanna out on this. And it's like Joanna is a slave to the expectations of others, and it's causing her a lot of pain. And this is a scene where Joanna, she gets kicked out of Summer's group. So now she's the loner. And not only that, but Amber and Summer have spread rumors about her, and she's just suffering and no one's there to help her. And but yet Crystal, you know, asks her like, hey, are you okay? You know, like the girl who got the crap beat out of her is checking on the new loner. And it's just
Yeah.
like, you know, it's just you're seeing more of Christ in Crystal as she interacts, because now she's helping Joanna out. And Crystal also doesn't care about what other people think of her anymore. She's caring a lot less. And she's like, who, like, these people are just part of the crowd and they'll say whatever they want to say to fit in. But like, if you just keep trying to please others, then you're just gonna be a slave to them. And so it shows kind of a confidence in Crystal, a credibility to her that Joanna is just fascinated with. So you're starting to like, we're entering the portions in the story where Crystal's starting to become more of a confident person, and people are seeing that and they're starting to want that more. And so this scene is basically where Crystal and Joanna start to talk a little bit more and to start their friendship a little bit. I know they did talk at the coffee shop a little bit, but this is where they're trying, like, really starting to get to know each other. But it doesn't go well like entirely, because after that, Joanna still avoids Crystal and ignores her because she's still trying to please other people. And you're just like, darn it, Joanna. Like,
I
why do you
know.
got to do that?
That's exactly what I was just like, Joanna, yo, there's clearly
Yo.
you're doing it wrong. You know, you're just
Oh,
like,
yeah.
why? Yeah, I remember reading that. I'm like, come on. Like, you just want her to go to the light side, you know what I'm saying?
You're like, come on.
Come
Like,
on.
get a backbone, man. But yeah, it eats her up inside and she feels totally guilty about it. So, yeah, she creates her own problems
Let's talk about drinking.
and partying.
That's what we all love to do, right?
It's the good stuff. Shirley Temples, man.
Shirley Temples, baby. Chapter 38, the drinking party.
Mm-hmm.
You start off with a quote. Sometimes you got to make 1,000 friends to find the one person you actually connect with. Something that Jamie Fisher said.
Yeah.
I like that. You can be friends with a lot of people, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're really gonna connect with them or that they're
Yeah.
going to be friends for life. Um, so that's interesting. And I like how Jamie says that.
Yeah.
For Jamie making friends is easy. Like he's a very um he's got everything that you want in like popularity. I mean, he's I guess, he's like a tall, handsome guy.
Yeah.
He's athletic,
Yeah.
he's smart, and he's got confidence. And I think that's something
Yeah.
that you brought up like earlier. Like I think when you're trying to make friends or something like that, or trying to like just be yourself, I think a lot of people, if they see that you're not confident, they don't want to be around you. Like you can be who you want to be or be who you are, but if you're not confident in that, then it's like you don't want to be friends with that kind of person. And I don't mean that to be harsh, but I do remember like a couple different times, whether it was in high school or college, more so college, where there were people like maybe they weren't athletic, they weren't good looking, they weren't that smart or anything, but like they were just confident
Yeah.
in who they were. And you're like, I like being around you. You
Yeah.
like being with confident people. Jamie's that kind of confident person, even though he's very broken on the inside.
Yeah.
But this is one of those scenes where like Crystal and Jamie go to this party.
Yeah.
And normally when you're in high school, you're going to parties with like alcohol and drugs and stuff like that. It's not a good thing. That's where you see like people kind of rebel
Yeah.
necessarily. But they're kind of making it a good thing just to try to get Crystal out of her comfort zone
Yeah.
and just meet as many people as you possibly can until you find that one person that you can actually connect with. However, this party kind of goes a little sideways.
A little bit. Yeah. That part, like, I really liked writing this scene, and they're like, I put so much into that scene that I'm like, it was very hard writing it at first, actually, because like I put so many big themes in there that I'm like, what's the one important theme? I'm like, oh, there's multiple important themes in here, and I'm like, oh shoot, which one comes first, and how do I display this? And I love that quote from Jamie as well, because like, yeah, confident, like people are drawn to confidence, and Jamie does have that. And like Jamie's helping Crystal like go to these parties because she wouldn't go to these parties by herself. Like she would never do it. That's why she needs Jamie. And I like that Jamie has a sense of wisdom to him, actually, even though he's, messed up inside. But yet he still has something to offer Crystal, and he helps her out. And so like takes her to this party, and just like the quote says, you have to meet 1,000 people to find the one person you connect with. Like I've met a lot of people in my life, but I don't have as good conversation with them as I do with you, bro. It's like you and I, we got a connection. It's almost like we're brothers, and and so you just have to keep meeting so many people. And so Jamie takes Crystal to this party, and she's still learning how to talk to people, which is where she then runs into Joanna there at the party as well. And so like it turns out that both Joanna and Jamie end up helping Crystal learn how to talk to people. And it's her starting to grow a little bit. So she's starting to find mentors from the people around her. And I love how Joanna tells Crystal that like you need to ask people questions, like just to start talking to people. And like, because people like to talk and people like it when people listen to them. And Jamie helps Crystal out and be like, you gotta treat people the way you want to be treated. So like, don't be rude to people. Like you have like be nice to people, and like they'll be nice to you. And so it just shows a lot of growth on Crystal's part socially. Like there's awkwardness. You could feel the awkwardness
Oh
as
yeah.
Crystal tries to talk to people, but at the same time, it is awkward at places like these. You're like, it's a party, everyone's relaxing, people are drunk, and you're like, hi,
Right.
you like chips or something?
Yeah.
So it just shows the awkwardness of that scene. And yeah, and then like it goes on, like you said, the party goes sideways a little bit, and uh Crystal ends up finding a girl at the party who's like, uh-oh, she's displaying signs of alcohol poisoning. And when like this scene is very interesting because I wanted to write a very countercultural thing to do in
Seems to be a
this.
theme.
Throughout the whole story, heck yeah, man.
Heck yeah, man. This is counterculture 101.
Yeah, I love that. That could be the secondary title for the book.
There you go.
And so in this scene, Crystal finds a girl who's showing signs of alcohol poisoning, but it's the end of the night, and this is a high school party. There's drugs and booze involved. So if the cops show up, then there's gonna be consequences, you know? And so I'm like, I had to think a little bit on this before I wrote it. I'm like, what is something that I can have Crystal do that nobody else would do that would just totally make her stand out, even though she doesn't want to stand out? And I thought, well, calling the cops on a party is one thing to do that. Like that'll ruin your reputation. But yet, so I put Crystal in this situation as a test to see if she'll really stand up and do the right thing because Crystal was trained by a nurse, her mom. So she knows what alcohol poisoning looks like. And so she ends up like telling people, hey, like this girl, like we got to call the cops. This girl is dying. And they're like, no, don't do that. You'll ruin the party. You know, like, and that's the thing. Would
And
you
they
be
don't
the
want to get
person?
caught either. I think that's a
Yeah.
big thing, you
Oh, yeah. Like, would you be the person to dial that number
know. Mhm.
if it meant that no one else would like you? You know? And so Crystal does it, but it ends up being the right call and she ends up saving a girl's life, even though she ruined the party. But that scene was also meant for Joanna because Joanna then sees Crystal do something that's countercultural when Joanna would always do whatever everyone else is doing, you know? So Joanna's like, I would never do that in a million years. And so it just makes Joanna more fascinated with this girl of like,
Yeah.
wow, this girl really is something. So yeah.
Also helps that Crystal was sober. Um, Everybody else, being drunk, then it's like,
I
maybe they're not
guess.
making the best decisions. That's for sure. I remember there was one time in college where there was a party and I was underage, but I wasn't drinking,
Hmm.
And I remember the police were called because there was like a noise complaint, and I was designated as one of the people to talk to them because I wasn't intoxicated.
Yeah,
So
man.
it all worked out. Hey, not drinking for the win. We still have fun. But let's move on. Chapter 39. As the Beatles once said, come together right now. Chapter 20 or 39. So this is a great chapter. Is where you really start to see the butterfly really crack out of the cocoon. Joanna asking Crystal at school how she able to stand up in front of the crowd, and Crystal invites Joanna to sit with her at lunch, and Joanna has that cross divide. It's just kind of like this test for Joanna to step out,
Hmm.
and then Crystal actually makes her core group, which is really interesting. So why now? And it seems to be with a bunch of misfit of people.
Yeah. So like, yeah, I really liked creating this scene because I took the whole story of like how many pages it took to build up to this moment of introducing every single character just to get them to this point of like, okay, now they're all sitting together and
Mm-hmm.
they can actually talk to each other. Like, because a lot of these instances were Crystal like talking to them like one-on-ones, but now they're all coming together. And it's a beautiful moment because it's a huge milestone for Crystal because the story starts off with her having no one to sit with. And then now she finally makes a group. Like she is the like because of her initiative and God helping her, she actually was able to form her own group. You know, the group wasn't gonna form by itself, like like it needed initiative. And so Crystal takes initiative and she creates her friend group essentially. And it's with all these super like random characters. Like you get the super popular kid, you get the world famous actress, and then you get the suck up,
Mm-hmm.
and a loner. It's just like put all these people together, and you're like, wow, that is a unique group of misfits right there.
What kind of Justice League is this?
You're right.
Yeah,
You're right. It's like the Avengers, but they're like, you guys are on a team. Not
right.
yet. Yes, eventually they will become the Avengers.
Yeah. Well, you just love it. I mean, you have so many different people and different perspectives that they're coming together, and they might not all be the same, but sometimes that's what makes friendships great.
Yeah.
Like, you don't always have to have everything in common. Sure, it helps, but you can also just listen to other people and get their different perspectives, get their different experiences. I think that was, one of the best things for me is moving to different places and all the states that I've lived in. I've met so many different people, and it's amazing. You just kind of absorb, and you're like, oh, I like that from this person, or I like that from that person. And you just kind
Yeah.
of like, sometimes you take things for yourself, but it just helps mend you. Like, God puts everybody in your life for a reason. It might
Hmm.
just be for, a season of your life. It might not be forever, but everybody has some sort of purpose like in your life. And so I think that's just good for people to know. And, you never know who is going to be your core group of friends, you
Yeah.
know? And that doesn't mean it's necessarily going to stay together forever, but at the same time, like I have friends that, I was only friends with in college for like a year, and we're still great friends to this day. Or sometimes it doesn't matter how long you've been friends, or know the person. You could be great friends with them, but then also it can go the other way. It doesn't matter. Like,
Yeah.
if I've been friends with somebody for 20 years and now all of a sudden, they've changed, you don't have to be friends with them. So it's really interesting, but I love this. And this normally would kind of be like the happily ever after
Yeah.
chapter, where like you could have just ended the book right there, but obviously there are more stories to be told. And that's what we're definitely going to be talking about next week. We're not giving you just one, we're giving you 2 parts next week. Yes, we're doubling up. Part 6, the loving father. And then part 7, the foreigner. One of my favorite characters still coming up. But yeah, you're not
Yeah.
going to want to miss those 2 parts. But before we go, Jake, do we have any closing words for the people?
You need to take initiative when it comes to friendships. Like the friends are not just going to come to you. Like you have to be the one to step out, even if it's uncomfortable. But if you look at Crystal's story, you'll see that it does work. You can make friends. It's just a little awkward. But then again, everyone is awkward and uncomfortable. And yeah, and I do want to jump back one more thing before we
Okay.
close out. Just like right after Crystal's friend group forms as a scene of joy for her. She's like up late at night studying, and I really liked writing this scene just because like she's studying, doing homework, and then she all of a sudden finds herself crying. And she just like doesn't realize it at first. It's like, whoa. But she feels true joy in the moment. It's like she finally has friends, like real friends to sit with. And I just love that milestone in there because it's a total flip from her previous life, like before she found God. And she's joyful, she's happy, she has friends now, and life is getting better. So I just loved writing that scene just for the sake of being joyful and being grateful,
Mm-hmm.
after everything that she's been through. So yeah, but to wrap it all up, yeah, we have to take initiatives in our friendships, and we can we will find friends in the randomest of places,
Mm-hmm.
but they can be the best people of all time. Like I love being at your wedding, like all your groomsmen in your groomsmen party, like everyone was different, but all those guys are freaking awesome, man.
Yeah, I know. That was the biggest dream come true. I was just like, all of these different chapters of my life coming together, and like
Yeah,
we're all together, and they all got along so great, and we all had
yeah,
just like the best week ever.
so much fun.
Yeah, just we're living testimony of it. God created us to be in community with people, but
Yeah,
sometimes you have to go through and meet a lot of people before you find the right people in
that's
your
right.
community. Um, but amazing. I love talking to you, brother, every single week about this. Once again, part 6 and 7 for episode 6. That'll be coming out next week. The Loving Father and the Foreigner. Thank you guys so much for watching Authors Insight with Jake Lynch. I'm Troy Lynch. He's Jake Lynch.
All
We'll
right.
see you next week. Peace out. Love on.